Hey there. Welcome back to the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of our little corner of the culture wars. Oh, hey, I think I come up with a show title for this episode of the York County Democratic Party YouTube show and podcast that we like to call YCDP TV. I'm Gary Pierce, your producer and host for this episode, and we do have a show title, Our Little Corner of the Culture Wars. And if you haven't been following along, we're talking about the York County library system and an effort by some county Republicans, led by Councilmember Tom Audette, to have a category of books moved from the children's section of the libraries to the adult section. And so I don't bury the lead, here's the quick take.
I make a motion to deny the appeal, which was the night before Pride.
At its June 8th meeting, the York County Library Board of Trustees voted unanimously to reject requests for reconsideration. That's the official term. They voted to reject the requests for reconsideration of 4 books. Those requests came from a woman named Linda Fisher. Fisher then appealed, and the appeal was denied. The next day, on June 9th, the board addressed the broader question of all the books that had been targeted by Audette and his constituents by issuing a long statement that said that they are opting not to relocate children's books to the adult section. Okay, that's our real headline, but it's not the end of the story, and it's not the whole story. So in a minute, we're going to look a little deeper. But first, I want to note that the York County Democratic Party is in the middle of what we call Spring Forward, our annual fundraiser, our only fundraiser. It supports the activities of the county party all year. The goal is about $10,000. I'll put a link to making a donation in the description here on the YouTube show, and you'll find it on the Facebook group and in John Kralovich's Monday memo. If you watched our episode 9, I talked to Carla LaTrenta and Ryan Stevens about how much candidates don't like asking money during campaigns and how it's impossible to win without it. That applies here too. We're running a little behind, so please kick in what you can. Also, as I release this episode, Rock Hill Pride is just getting started with events all week. Check the calendar on their website. But the event I remember most from last year is the Rock Hill Pride Outdoor Festival. That's going to be on Saturday, June 24th, from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m., and pretty much all over downtown Rock Hill. It was a pretty impressive display of, well, pride and support for our LGBTQ+ community. Now, I'm a straight white male here in the red zone, and a lot of my friends and activities outside the Democratic Party lean opposite of me politically. I keep my political profile kind of low, but not invisible. I can still blend in, and sometimes the talk gets political in those groups. This month, I see the sneer, and I hear the snide comments, and I hear the Fox News talking points. I pick my battles. I don't try to take on a group. They think they're preaching to the choir, and everyone's got to pitch in to show their standing, while I stay kind of quiet. But one-on-one, people can be at least open to a more reasonable discussion. I can ask them when they decided to be straight. That's an impossible question to answer because no one ever did. Anyway, our friends in the queer community hear this stuff too, and it hurts, or worse. So the support they see and feel at Pride events can keep them going. So I'll see you there. Finally, Monday, June 19th is Juneteenth. That's a name and a holiday that I didn't understand until I took the time to learn at least a little bit about it a few years ago. Learning about things like that is what woke is all about. Another friend of mine was scoffing at the idea of a Juneteenth holiday, and he was under the impression that it was tied to Pride Month. And why do we need holidays for everything anyway? So, why Juneteenth? President Abraham Lincoln announced that the Emancipation Proclamation would go into effect on January 1st, 1863, which was nice, but the Union had to win the Civil War first. And that didn't happen until April 9th, 1865, more than 2 years later. And even then, enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation was, let's say, uneven across the South. In Texas, it took a couple of months until June 19th, 1865, before an order was issued by Union Army Major General Gordon Granger proclaiming freedom for slaves in Texas. So June 19th, Juneteenth, has been celebrated by Black Americans pretty much ever since. But the rest of us have been slow to catch on. It only became a federal holiday 2 years ago in 2021. And it remains the object of scorn and derision by some white Americans who still aren't woke. So happy Juneteenth. And maybe next year I'll be on the ball enough to do a program that explores the history of Juneteenth and its meaning today in a little more depth. But now on with our show. So Tom Audette and some York County Republicans want to move some books. They've got a long list from the children's section of the county library system to the adult section. But these books were written specifically for children, some for younger children and some for older children, and the older teens who don't really want to be called children anymore. The books deal frankly with issues of sexuality, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And the ones I've seen have some cartoon-style pictures. I'm going to show you a couple here. Some very simple line drawings that don't do much more than hint at male and female genitals. So again, the books in the children's section of the library deal with sexuality, sexual orientation, and gender identity. And I think those are all closely related, but they're still somewhat separate issues. And, well, A, Republicans tend to freak out about their kids learning anything about sex, although they don't deny that sex actually exists. And B, they really freak out about their kids learning about sexual orientation and gender identity. And they do deny that these are real things. They say we libs made it all up. And of course, I'm talking about the idea that somebody might be attracted to members of the opposite sex or either sex, or maybe the idea that sexual orientation isn't binary. And the idea that a person may discover that they're in the wrong body. Someone in a male body may feel female, someone in a female body may feel male, and they may want to do something about it, and that word is transsexual or just trans. And these ideas really freak out your cultural conservatives. And that would be a lot of people living in York County. They call it evil, sinful, deviant, dangerous, and they really don't want their kids learning about it. They think that just knowing about these gender issues may lead kids to become gay or lesbian or transsexual. And at the same time, they deny that these gender identities actually exist, and I'm not going to try to square that circle for them. The idea that there can be a spectrum, a rainbow of sexual orientations and gender identities is both inconceivable and at the same time a subject of contemptuous humor, scorn, and derision. And that's what's behind the move to push these books out of the children's section, where parents still have the responsibility to monitor what their children are reading, and into the adult section, where they become invisible, unless you know what you're looking for and exactly where to find it. In episodes 7 and 8 of our podcast, we looked at some of these books and we saw some of the county council's action or lack of action last May. Tom Audette made some speeches about moving books.
This book is called Jack, Not Jackie.
Conservatives from the audience made some speeches about how awful the books were.
Sexually explicit content.
Sexually explicit books in the library.
Inappropriate books.
Sexually explicit material.
Sexually inappropriate material.
Inappropriate materials.
A picture of a nude man.
Books that are unsuitable for children.
And the progressives in the audience told the council to leave the books alone.
So after I listened to some disturbing comments about objectionable books in the children's section a few weeks ago, I did what any reasonable person would do, and I went to go check it out for myself.
In the end, the council really didn't do anything.
The county council does not decide what books get placed on the shelves at the library. That would be handled by the director and the board of trustees.
Even before that, as far back as last September, Tom Audette was arguing that he wanted the library to add some books to provide balance. The story was covered by Queen City News.
These books, like Double Think, A Feminist Challenge to Transgenderism, oppose the gender identity movement. York County Councilman Tom Audette is responsible for the initiative. He says constituents came to him with concerns of the balance of books in the libraries.
Queen City News also interviewed Katie Rutland for that story to provide balance.
And it just kind of felt like he was trying to stir the pot.
And if you watched our episode 7, Katie took us through our tour of the children's section of the Fort Mill Library.
So this is kind of the space where they live.
The library did add at least some of the books that Audette requested, but it didn't end there. Audette was back in May of this year with his demand that the library move a long list of books from the children's section to the adult section. This is even though the county council doesn't manage anything in the library. When we left this story in episode 8, there had been a Library Board of Trustees meeting on May 18th, where everyone expected that Tom Audette would make his case to move the books. He can bloviate at the county council all he wants, but this is where the decisions can be made. They had a pretty big audience for that.
I do want to make it clear to everyone here tonight, since this is the first time we have ever had a audience at our board meeting, that there is not anything on our agenda tonight to discuss the movement of books from one section of the library to the other.
But yeah, it wasn't on the agenda, and Tom never said a word. And I ended the episode saying that the ball was back in Tom Audette's court. Well, the ball was passed to a woman named Linda Fisher. She picked 4 titles from their objection list and filed a request for reconsideration with the library, requesting that the books be moved to the adult section and complaining that the books, and I'll quote from her complaint, contain sexually explicit information and innuendo that is unsuitable for the children they are aimed at. All of these books have the same intention, to sexualize young children and create in their minds the viability of lifestyle choices that are inappropriate subject matter for children at the age group intended for the audience of these books. In other words, it's not okay to be gay. Well, I missed that meeting, but the Rock Hill Herald added some video to their story, and it included some of Fisher's remarks to the library board at that June 8th meeting.
The materials in question have a common theme of human sexuality. The books you have in the library offer a wide range of perspectives on these topics. The problem with your current shelving policy for these materials is that the books are unclassified, which makes them invisible. You shelve books about mammals, reptiles, ethnic cultures, and even holidays by category on one shelf. Why aren't books about human sexuality shelved together so we can avail ourselves of these resources in a logical manner on one shelf in one place? The point is, we need to know what is available, the titles and varieties of perspectives on these books, and where they are located.
The board denied Fisher's request. She appealed, and the board denied her appeal. And that vote was recorded by the Herald.
I make a motion to deny the appeal for Twas the Night Before Pride.
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? All right, motion passes.
Fisher wasn't the only one who addressed the library board. A Democratic activist, Heather Jones, also spoke for a minute or two. And again, this is the Rock Hill Herald's video.
I believe parents do have the right to see what their children view. But the moment that crosses the line of one parent getting to dictate what another parent gets to have access for their children, or pulling things from shelves, because I'm sorry, it's disingenuous to say that's not the end goal.
There had been a pretty large group of people on both sides of the issue, maybe 50 or 60, assembled for that meeting. And Heather had helped to bring people out from the Democratic side. And I talked to her later about what had happened.
I had heard through social media that there was a group planning to create a silent protest against the board in relationship to some book requests that had been put in by a citizen asking for books to be removed, and also in support of a new amendment that is attempting to change the review process. And an organizer who I know in the community had put out the word that we were looking for people to come and represent the other side, to show that there were citizens who didn't agree with this stance, and to also provide support so that the board of directors saw that there were people who approve of what's happening at the library and like what's in place.
And then what happened once you got into the meeting?
They did a very good job of making sure both sides got equal seating inside, because there were far more people than could fit the room where the meeting was being held. I had expressed that I was interested in talking if there was a slot available. And so I was approached by one of the library staff saying, this is the time where we're signing up the speakers. And I was invited in a little earlier so that I could get my name on the list with the other speakers, the 2 for and the 2 against.
Tell me about the experience of talking before a board like this. Is this something that you do all the time?
It's something that I'm getting more comfortable with. When my family moved here to TGK, I wanted to make sure I was involved in the local happenings. So I have been attending the local TGK council meetings since about a month after we arrived. I'm not super comfortable with public speaking. It's not something that comes naturally to me, but I had a lot of experience in grad school refining the skill a little bit. And so when I was approached asking if this was something I'd be comfortable speaking about to represent the members of the community who didn't want to see these changes happen. I was willing to stretch myself because it is an issue I feel very passionately about.
What would you say to other people that have said, well, I would like to speak, but I'm just too afraid? What would you tell them?
The more you do it, the more comfortable it gets. I've also found that people respond well when you go in sincerely. It wasn't scripted, that I hadn't practiced it and rehearsed it like you might a debate speech or something where you're trying to stick to a strict time limit. And it's still important just to show up, because a vacuum existing makes it seem like nobody cares.
So what happened toward the end of the meeting? There was an interesting set of votes back then.
After executive session, you are allowed to come back in. They usually will share any decisions that were made right then. So they shared the decision they'd made with us on each individual item. They gave the vote and the results saying, yes, it was unanimous that we're going to keep all 4 of these books. There were people who did very seriously consider voting against the rest of the board, but understood what's at stake here, I think, and made a decision that maybe wasn't personally comfortable for them, but they felt was in the best interest of the community. One thing that I wish I had thought to add in my 5 minutes when I was speaking to the board, because one of the main arguments that was presented is that this is about obscenity and about pornography. And they presented an argument that pornography makes children susceptible to human trafficking and sexual abuse. And for me, when I saw these cartoon graphics that show genitalia and they show anatomy, a key factor they're missing in their argument is that the other major concern for human trafficking and sexual abuse is that children do not have the language to accurately describe their bodies and to understand the terms that they would need to use to describe something that's happened to them. So I view those books as a tool that a parent can use to give age-appropriate anatomical information to their children. And that kind of makes me sad and a little frustrated that they miss this key factor, because I'm a parent in the modern age. I am worried about my children being abused. It's not that I don't share the concerns of these other parents, but I want to make sure I'm equipping my children that if something does happen, or if we are in a situation, that they are able to understand what is happening, which will help protect them because they'll be able to push back against it. Or if the worst case does happen, they will be able to accurately report it, and that we can get justice and get the services we need for them in that scenario, which hopefully never happens.
Well, we had a great conversation. That was just a small part of it. I'm going to put the whole thing on YouTube as soon as I can, and I think you'll enjoy it. So, the Library Board of Trustees put their foot down, denying the request and the appeal to move 4 specific books. And the next day, June 9th, they issued a long statement confirming that they were opting not to relocate children's books to the adult section. They noted that when parents sign the library card application for their children, they agree to supervise their child's use of the library. Their statement continued, when it pertains to juvenile fiction books, there will be books of imaginative fiction and those which authentically portray a period, incident, or a way of life that are selected despite the occasional use of a questionable word or illustration, provided the total impact of the books meets other basic criteria, and that juvenile nonfiction is purchased that is accurate, informative, and up-to-date, and selected in as wide a range of reading levels and interest as possible. Recommended books for children on sex and reproduction are not excluded because of the subject matter. Well, that caught local media's attention. Radio station WRHI ran the full quote on their website. The Rock Hill Herald ran a long story, including the video that we showed earlier. CN2 had a short story on their website with some of the library board statement, and a picture from the County Council's May 5th meeting showing Tom Audette holding up a picture from the book You Be You that he claimed showed a naked man fully exposed, naked woman fully exposed, and we showed the picture full size, revealing that it wasn't a naked anybody. It was a picture of internal male and female reproductive organs. CN2 felt the need to censor that picture. And by the way, so did Queen City News when they ran the story about that council meeting. That would all be funny if, it is funny. And that's it. End of story, right? It's over.
Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is.
But we won, didn't we? Well, the next step is a little murky. At their June 5th meeting, the County Council had the first reading of a motion that would do this.
Council to consider first reading by title only of an ordinance to amend Section 30.09 of the York County Code of Ordinances, election and appointment to boards and commissions, to add new subsection E3 to specify that all district-specific appointments to any York County Board or Commission, whether by direct county council appointment or by recommendation for appointment, shall be required to maintain their residence in the district appointment throughout the duration of the term of appointment, or be subject to immediate removal and replacement. To clarify that any countywide appointee moving out of the county shall be grounds for a board member's immediate removal and replacement unless an extra county domicile is specifically permitted by ordinance, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Got that? I'll interpret. Members of the various boards set up by the County Council, including the Library Board, need to maintain residence in the district they were appointed to. If they move out of the district, they lose their job on the board. And that seems reasonable until Councilmember Allison Love explains.
This is just putting the people who, when we did the redistricting, they felt outside the district that they were representing, so it's just to put people back. It doesn't put them anywhere, it just opens those seats back up for people to apply for. Right. Okay. If you're appointed to a district, you have to remain in that district for the entirety of your district appointment.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
So some board members didn't move out of their districts. The districts moved away from them. Some library board members are affected by this. But wait, there's more. Another first reading of a motion by Allison Love to eliminate 3 of the 10 board members of the library board, specifically the 3 at-large members.
Item number 5, council to consider first reading by title only of an ordinance to amend Section 91.05 of the York County Code of Ordinances, County Library Board created composition officers meetings in order to reduce the size of the County Library Board to 7 district-specific members appointed by County Council, to clarify conditions for membership to the board, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Yeah, that needs some explanation too.
We'll start with the motion maker and move on down the line. Ms. Love.
Okay. So this one, we would just like to reduce that board. There are 2 people that are, we're reducing it by the at-large members, but there are 2 people who are at-large members who will be able to apply again, because what we just did, number 4, opens up a seat in District 7 and District 5. So they can reapply. And if we wait to do this, those spots would be filled by people that are moving, going to apply before they get the opportunity. So these 2 kind of things need to be done in conjunction, just timing wise. If those people want to apply to continue to be on the library board.
Okay, but Bump Roddy, you had a question?
Any particular reason why we're removing that at large?
Well, I think we're going to be going through some other boards and commissions too. So we just started with this one because that's if we remove those at large, those 2 members who are in different districts will be able to reapply. Whereas right now they can't.
Yeah. What? Watts Huckabee.
So I had the same question you had, Bump. I asked, why are we reducing from 10 to 7, getting rid of the at-large seats? Because I'm kind of in favor of at-large seats, and I'll leave that comment to that. But so my understanding is the reason behind this is because they're having trouble with attendance.
Objection, Your Honor. The accused are not in the courtroom to defend themselves.
Well, if attendance was the issue, it doesn't make sense to reduce the number if you're having a problem getting people there. Certainly, we're not going to increase it. But
that's kind of my point.
Yeah. It's going to make it hard to have a quorum if you only have 7 versus 10 potential to show up. And if you're having a problem with a quorum with 10 members, you're certainly going to have a problem with a quorum at 7 members.
Yeah, I think the focus needs to be on the purpose of the meeting and how often they meet in hopes of increasing attendance. But that's not our job. I'm just pointing that out.
Not helping. Anything else?
So you mentioned that, and you must be spearheading this, where you want to go through and just
spearheading it. I just did the I'm not spearheading it.
Well, you made the motion, so you kind of are, but carry on.
But I heard you say, and we're going to go to other committees and do the same thing, which means we're going to remove the at-large.
No, not necessarily.
Well, Watts, we heard her say that too. Can we rewind the tape?
I think we're going to be going through some other boards and commissions too, so we just started with this one.
So, any more clarity?
But I like the idea of at-large seats on boards personally.
I think with respect to these particular boards, reducing the committee to voting members who, from the districts is consistent with what the other boards have, especially when they have dedicated millage assigned to them. I think there are ex officio parts, but actually having voting membership on that, I think in addition to helping with quorum and accountability and following the boards, I support this. I'm sorry if I left any of you out. Or any comments on this before we move to a vote? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 5-2.
So, no more clarity. But Roddy and Huckabee voted no. There'll be 2 more votes at 2 more meetings and maybe some more discussion before this is all done. What is there to discuss? Well, you have a library board that's acting independently, maybe doing some things that most of the county council members don't like. But those county council members don't want to overtly micromanage the affairs of the library board. So maybe we shake that board up a little. Hey, I'm just like Tucker Carlson. I'm just asking. I asked the library board too, at their group email address, and I got some answers. At this point, everybody's feeling a little bit skittish about going on the record and going on camera, so here's the statement I received. Because you are politically affiliated, and that's me and the YCDP TV show, we do not wish to participate other than to state that the majority of the board stands by the statements made in the press release. We are unsure as to the reasoning behind the council's decision to restructure our board, as any inquiry for explanation has gone unanswered by the council. And let me repeat that last line. We are unsure as to the reasoning behind the council's decision to restructure our board, as any inquiry for explanation has gone unanswered by the council. And so, what is that, Mr. Belushi?
Nothing is over until we decide it is.
Yeah, well, I don't think that we're in the driver's seat on this one. I would have preferred the Yogi Berra line, "It ain't over till it's over." But apparently he never said that on tape. The next county council meeting is Tuesday, June 20th, when they'll do all the routine and boring business of the council. That's usually reduced to paving roads. They also have the 3rd reading, the final vote, I think, on the motion to ace some board members out of their jobs if they've been redistricted out of the district they used to live in, and the 2nd reading of the motion to lop off all of the at-large members of the County Board of Trustees. I won't be there. I got a conflict, but I'll watch the video, I'm sure. Maybe you should be there. Maybe say something. I don't know. Anyway, this show is finally over, and I'll see you soon. Maybe I'll see you at Pride on Saturday. So stay strong, stay classy, San Diego. Over and out.